Look at the modern economy's two distinct habitats, the gritty industrial factory floor and the sterile corporate office. This chart reveals a systemic gap. While productivity climbs aggressively, the people maintaining it watch their economic leverage vanish, as shown by the plummeting curves in labor income and job security. Sociologist Zygmunt Bauman identifies this structural shift as a deliberate feature of the modern economy. Bauman maps modern history across two distinct eras: the producer society, which once demanded physical labor for survival, and today's consumer society, which judges human value by purchasing power. To understand why cognitive white-collar workers are now losing their grip, we must examine the brutal perfection of the producer society in Shenzhen. Over the last 40 years, Shenzhen's GDP per capita rose by over 24,000%, built directly on the extraction of disciplined human labor. The work ethic is an invented construct from the Industrial Revolution, designed to transition autonomous farmers into a compliant factory workforce. China scaled this model to include 290 million peasant workers, who now constitute over a third of the national labor force. The hukou system legally disenfranchises these workers, denying them education and healthcare in the very cities they built. Corporations like Foxconn weaponize this vulnerability. Workers endure 14-hour shifts in total silence, their every movement confined within strictly marked assembly zones. The factory floor operates through psychological pressure, from unified morning chants to public sessions of self-criticism. Shenzhen represents the engineered perfection of the producer society, where workers are stripped of leverage to ensure maximum output. This level of extraction reached a breaking point in 2010, triggering an epidemic of suicides at Foxconn's manufacturing campuses. Management responded with physical containment, installing roof nets and hiring monks while maintaining the same grueling hours. Foxconn abandoned its $4 billion automation plan in favor of a cheaper alternative, using vocational student interns to fill high-intensity shift rotations. State suppression reinforces this model. Under President Xi Jinping, the 2016 and 2017 foreign NGO laws dismantled the support systems for labor activists. These laws starved advocacy groups of funding and enabled the systematic censorship of their communications. While the state mandates the study of Marxist ideology, it actively engineers a system where human labor is treated as a disposable, optimized input. As automation outpaces demand, the economy pivots. Survival now depends on clearing massive inventories through mass consumption. In the consumer aesthetic, human value is measured by the capacity to choose and spend. In this era, the definition of poverty shifts to the failure to consume appropriately. This flawed consumer lacks both the capital for mainstream participation and the institutional permission, like credit access, required for modern life. The resulting boredom leads to deep social alienation in a world organized entirely around consumer leisure. Without purchasing power, an individual becomes structurally useless to the economic machine. White-collar professionals once believed their high aesthetic knowledge jobs were safe from the automation of the factory floor. Artificial intelligence has destroyed that distinction. An OpenAI study reveals Goldman Sachs projects that 300 million jobs globally are now vulnerable to this computerization. Even the human touch is replicable. Researchers at the University of British Columbia found that GPT models match the highest standards of human clinical psychology. IBM views this automation as a corporate necessity to offset shrinking labor pools in developed nations. A college degree is no longer a shield. Cognitive labor is now just as commodified as an assembly line in Shenzhen. Industrial-era governments could manage surplus labor by exporting populations to overseas colonies. Globalization has removed that release valve. While capital moves instantly to cheaper markets, redundant local populations are geographically stuck. With the domestic reserve army of labor vanishing, the middle class increasingly perceives the welfare state as a parasitic drain on their income. Systemic management has shifted from welfare to punishment, criminalizing poverty as a personal failure of utility. Society contains this obsolescence through geographic isolation and media narratives that frame joblessness as a moral failure, obscuring its origin as an algorithmic inevitability. The system has abandoned rehabilitation in favor of containment, isolating surplus populations to preserve the consumer aesthetic. Capitalism is systematically eliminating the need for human labor as an economic input. We are reaching the end of a 200-year era where human survival had to be justified through market labor. To address the resulting displacement, OpenAI's Sam Altman proposes a universal basic income, calculating that AI productivity could fund a $13,500 annual dividend per citizen. This shift requires us to recognize high social value tasks, like caregiving and community building, as legitimate work. Solving the crisis of the new poor requires abandoning the industrial morality of exhaustion to decouple human dignity from economic utility.